Welcome to Archery Country Podcast. Welcome back, everybody, to Archery Country Podcast. This is your host, Big Wade, as we are Bowfishing 101 today with some of the experts in the industry. Two guys that I got coaxed to come on down from the Alexandria area. Not only are they awesome tournament fishermen, but they're also engineers / inventors of some awesome products. And we will be talking about AeroSaver, the company that they run and set up. So we have Monty Mounsdon and also Wayne Clauseman. How are you guys doing today?
Doing fantastic.
Doing great.
Good.
I
appreciate you driving down in the wind. Was it at your ass or in the front?
I think it was behind us.
Behind, yeah. Okay. So you got good gas mileage, which is important this day and age.
Yeah, exactly.
So, guys, last year we did a podcast on bowfishing, basically Bowfishing 101, from everything ground zero to up. But today we're going to go on the expert level of things, coming from two guys that are very avid outdoorsmen. But also when we talk bowfishing, Wayne, you've done it for a long time, and Monty as well. You guys have fished a ton of tournaments, been very successful. And then you came up with an item that I would say has kind of revolutionized the way, and we're going to get into what it is exactly, but it's something that's super cool and we want to talk about. But before we do that, if you wouldn't mind giving me just a little background so our viewers know you a little bit better, your outdoor passion, you grew up, where you're from, what you do now. Just give us a little lowdown. Monty, we'll start with you if you don't mind.
I was brought up in a hunting family and fishing and whatever. That was what we did. Dad and grandfather, whatever, through the years. Big waterfall, a lot of fishing, deer hunting. Great way to grow up. Spending time outdoors with your family. It was a good time. Later on, ended up getting a job in Alexandria, staying around the area. Building packaging equipment up there, and I use that as kind of probably the engineering end of getting into trying my own business here and creating AeroSaver. So
I love it. And you're still very active when it comes to the outdoors. You guys are actually leaving. Are both of you going on a snow goose hunt next week?
Yep,
we are. You
guys hunt a bunch together? Obviously fish together, because we'll talk tournaments in a bit, but
some pheasant hunting, bow fishing, snow geese, a little bit of duck hunting,
and coyotes.
A lot of coyotes.
Yep. Pest control.
Oh yeah.
Wayne, where are you from? Give us a little background.
I'm from Alexandria, and I guess my background, same thing. Just grew up with a lot of hunting and fishing, and pretty much if I'll hunt anything that moves for the most part. So just enjoy it all with anything from ducks and geese to deer, turkey, and just really love archery hunting especially. That's probably my absolute favorite. Just grew up doing a lot of it and really got converted from a walleye fisherman to a carp fisherman here several years back. So just
kind of a big change.
Got introduced to it, and if you'd have told me I'd rather be out shooting carp than catching walleyes, I would have never believed it. But yeah, just fell in love with the sport and been doing it ever since.
I got to ask you guys, what is the attraction? What's the big draw to bow fishing? Is it because you're taking hunting and fishing and marrying the two, or what do you think in your mind? Like what brought you guys to it?
I think for me that's what it is. It's a combination of you're hunting for fish in a sense. Cruising along, you never know when that next moment's going to be where all of a sudden you see that big carp that's laying there. And that's for me, I guess I like shooting big carp. I like going for that more than shooting numbers of small fish. It's just more the excitement of kind of like having that big buck walk around the corner when you're on stand to see that great big carp down there. It adds excitement for me.
Monty, same thing?
Yeah, Wayne got me into this. I had never been.
It's his fault. His fault.
Exactly. So he got me into it. I think it was 14 years ago, and you never know what you're going to find. I too like big carp. A, because they're big carp, and B, the small ones are harder to hit. So, but yeah, it's a lot of fun, and when a lot of people go to bed, we get to go out and play, and the lake's pretty quiet for the most part, and it's enjoyable. You see a lot of great stuff at night. Come around the corner, and there might be deer standing on the shoreline, or raccoons, or whatever, beavers swimming under the boat.
And I think that's a big thing, as far as guys, your local coffee shop talk, or up there at Christofferson's, guys are saying, wow, the walleye numbers are down, or the bass, or sunnies, or that. And I say, bull honky. You take one night out on the boat with lights at night fishing. It's amazing the life of the lake. Like, you get to see. I mean, and don't get me wrong, we've gone through some droughts. We've gone where lakes have been up 4 feet, so things get a little bit different. But it's just the not only the above water species, but underwater, which I know where the state record snapping turtle is. You know what I mean? It's just things that you don't experience the everyday fisherman or hunter. Let's talk. We talked a little bit off air of like the changes in bow fishing. Wayne, you started, way before Monty and I started, but kind of take us through that back when it was just one boat and the kind of the story you shared earlier.
All right. Well, I can do that. I started back when nighttime bow fishing wasn't a thing. You could only go during the daytime. And I guess I can go back to my first experience with it. I went out and I had shot a lot of archery, for deer hunting. And so I got invited along with a friend of mine to go bow fishing and to try it. And I thought, well, I can shoot bow with the best of them, so yeah, why not? And that day, I think we shot a barrel of fish, and I used the we term loosely because I think I shot 2 fish that first time out, and I was so frustrated, but I was so hooked.
Right.
And anyway, since then it just I got hooked on it. Obviously once you do it more, you get a better shot, and makes it a lot more fun. And so anyway, when they introduced the nighttime bow fishing, it was a game changer. During the daylight, you kind of need to have it calm, and you need to have a sunny day. If it's cloudy, it doesn't work. Whereas at nighttime, the wind tends to die down. You have the lights to shine, so you don't have to worry about clouds or anything else. And so it just really has been a game changer. And so we've gone from that first night or first year that they had night fishing. They would have separate or just certain lakes that you could do it on. They were kind of doing it as a trial experiment. And without doubt, you would generally get yelled at every time you went out that first year because people didn't know what was going on. They'd see these bright lights shining through their window, and a lot of times they'd come out yelling at you, and the first thing they would think is you're stealing something or whatever. But it would take time to kind of explain to people what you're doing, and usually once they've figured out that, hey, you're out shooting carp, then great, go get them, shoot more of them. Yeah. So a lot of people are just, oh yeah, go over here. This is where there's a lot of them. So they were helpful once they figured out what you were doing. So
what was your, okay, so that very first night, like what did you guys have for a boat? Did you go get floodlights, or did you actually have something rigged up?
Well, with my boat, I actually started off going the cheap route where I just had these cheap like halogen work lights that people use. And I think you could get them on sale for about $6 or something at that point. And so, and they work, but they didn't hold up real well. They're not made for bouncing across waves and stuff like that. So you're replacing a lot of light bulbs in them. And so that's the neat thing about bow fishing is you can get into it relatively cheap. You don't have to have the big fancy new bow, anything like that. You can buy some old junky bow and get it set up with a fishing reel and go out and have fun. We've seen guys with everything from little 12-foot lunds with a wood platform on the front of it to you can go as extreme as you want, I guess, but you can get into it and everybody can have fun and enjoy it, so you don't have to have all of those things to be successful, but yet it's like anything. If you set up right, it definitely helps.
It does. Did you guys, Monty, do you do any day fishing nowadays, or is it all night?
Pretty much all night.
Yeah.
So got 2 full-time jobs during the day, and as soon as the lights go out at home, Wayne and I grab the boat and head out and play.
Make money while the sun shines, and then play at night.
Exactly.
Oh, what have you seen in the revolutionary, bow fishing? It's caught on. I still think it's growing. I would say probably 5 years ago was like the big boom in this state. Down south they've been doing it for a while. Wisconsin, Minnesota, depending on regulations. But we talked about earlier. I can remember back when there was one boat on the water in the Alexandria, the Chain of Lakes area, St. Cloud area, even down here by the cities. And if you did see somebody, like you caught up to them just to share the passion and talk to them. And now it's an avoid. Like you gotta, be respectful, but there's 5 boats on a lake, especially when somebody starts jaw jacking in town and saying spillway's full, or they're over in the culvert or wherever it may be. But what have you seen along those lines?
Well, it's kind of funny because, when I first started going out with Wayne, we went out and we shot fish. We had a great time, whatever. All of a sudden, it became a secret. If you found fish, people are always taken back at, hey, where were you guys out last night? It's gotten to be just like walleye fishing or whatever. You don't talk about it.
Good spot on public land. You don't.
Exactly. So everybody's got their hot spots that they like to go play, and hopefully nobody recognizes that you were there or whatever. So
I got to ask you guys because, okay, I've only ever fished one tournament where we were entered against you personally. But you guys have a recognizable rig. Does that ever hinder you? Do you get followers from time to time? Does it happen like that?
Not that I know of, but it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can recognize the boat.
So let's talk just a little bit about. I want to talk more fishing stories. We will, but today we're gonna dive into a product that's sitting right in front of Wayne. And correct me if I'm wrong, Monty, you came up with this idea. The company is AeroSaver. The product is called AeroSaver. It's relatively cheap product that's it has to be a must in my mind in every rig out there, especially I should say a boat. But even if you're shore fishing or you get into a situation, especially shore fishing when it's colder water, but take us down the path of what AeroSaver is, how you came up with that idea, why you came up with that idea, and then why it has to be a must. And you, Wayne, join in on this because you had a lot to do with it as well, and you guys use it.
Yeah. So 2015, I think it was I think it was in 2015. We were shooting a tournament one night, and we left probably half a dozen arrows in the lake that night. And we were in a deep water flat, and the root system was tough, and you'd get these arrows stuck, and Wayne and I, neither one of us think a whole lot about jumping over the side of the boat and going swimming for arrows. Some of these young guys will, but at the time it was a cost factor. You didn't want to be leaving 6 arrows. And the other thing is it's time. We were shooting a tournament, and we were losing time retying arrows and whatnot. So went home after that tournament, kind of started thinking about where do we go from here. I spent my whole life dreaming about inventing this or inventing that or whatever, and I work at a company where we build a lot of cool stuff. So started coming up with some ideas. I made a model of what I had, brought it over to show Wayne, and afterwards he kind of told me that he wasn't quite as excited about it as I was after I showed it to him. He just didn't see exactly, I guess. Comment, Wayne? Or
Yeah, I guess that first night I remember that when Monty came over at the prototype, and he was just flying on cloud 9, and he came over and he's like, oh man, you got to see this. And he came over and he shoved an arrow in my yard and like, oh, you got to try this. And I tried it, and it was honestly kind of like, oh, well, yeah, that's kind of cool, but I wasn't over the top excited about it. But I have to tell you, the first night on the water, this is a kind of a product. You can look at it and you kind of think, maybe it's not that big a deal. But when you use it on the water, it's amazing. It saves so much time. I think originally Monty had come up with it to kind of save the arrows rather than losing $20 or $30 a pop when you drop an arrow, which is a huge benefit to this, but it's as much a convenience thing as anything, just for time wise, and you're not reaching down into the water to, up to your shoulder, getting all wet and everything, and you got a, wet shirt the rest of the night and all that. It's just so much quicker and easier, to pop them in and out, and it's just great. You just snap the thing on the line and you kind of follow it right down to the arrow, and it clips on, and you can just pop it out so easy. And so it's turned out to be more of a time saver than anything, not only for tournaments, but I do a lot where I bring a lot of new guys out, and a lot of times they don't realize, you're shooting full draw into a clump of cattails or something, and when you miss the fish, your arrow is really buried deep. Well, it's really a handy thing to have, just to snap on the arrow and pop it out quick and easy. And
so what we're talking about for our listeners, if you've never bow fished, or if you're just getting into it, or if you have bow fished, when we shoot an arrow, depending on where you're at in the lake, all bottom structure can be a little bit different. If you get into cattails, which a lot of carp, come into the shallows after that 10, 30, 11 o'clock time, or like you were talking, a deep flat, where rather it be milfoil on the bottom or some kind of weed that has a root system that spreads, most of our arrows, all of our arrows, have a barb of some sort. Now, the carp arrows do not have a blade. We're not slicing and penetrating like a whitetail, elk, or turkey broadhead. But there's a barb or a grapple system. So when the arrow goes through a fish, the barbs flange backwards so that you can keep the fish on the arrow most of the time. Well, if you take that same situation and you shoot it into a cattail root, like Wayne had said, and also Monty, in your deep flats, sometimes, especially if you got to shoot, you're at full draw, your poundage is anywhere from 25 to 50, depending on your setup, it can get stuck. And there's been situations, I'm a big dude, and I cannot physically pull the arrow out. And we don't run reels like big ocean fishermen, with the bails and all that system. Us three sitting here shoot a bottle reel. So you're not actually reeling it. We're doing it more like a tip up, hand over hand. That's what we're talking about, this product. When you do stick an arrow in the muck or in the weed setup, you can take us through exactly how to use it, what it is. We're pulling the arrow out with a device. It's, I don't even know, the dimensions, obviously you built it, but give us a little rundown on exactly what it is and how we use it.
Okay, so when it was first invented, the thinking was I broke my string and my arrow is left behind. And with it, it's got a set of jaws on it. You slide it over the top of the arrow, and it works on arrows with a safety slide system. And so as you slide it over the top of the arrow, it catches on the stop that's on your safety slide, and that's how you pull it out. And like I said in the beginning, the idea was I broke a string, and now I'm going to try to get my arrow back. And it took very little time of being in the boat to realize, don't mess around with trying to pull it out by hand.
Right.
When you've stuck it in the bottom of the lake. So you grab the arrow saver, through the jaws, you put the string in there, slide it down the string over the top of the arrow, hooks onto the arrow. You give it a pull, the arrow comes out so nice. And you've got leverage where the shaft on the arrow is probably 5/16, and you wrap your big mitt around it, and you try to pull on that, and that doesn't work, and you cut up your hand. This thing here, you've got 1 1/4 inch shaft. You're giving it a pull, and you pull it out. As soon as that arrow's out, it just snaps out of the jaws. You just lever action it out of the jaws, and you go back to bow fishing.
And your jaws are a one-way street. So you're going onto the arrow, and it's smooth. It goes down the line past your safety slide, and then you capture on the arrow. And there's a leverage point that we talked about. So not only is it ingenuity for saving time, so you can get back, especially if you get into a big pot of fish and, you're hunting out the males and the females are over here and you don't want to turn the boat around to go get the arrow and spook everything off. But also for a safety factor, the length of this, because there's one other product on the market, but it's about a foot long. Well, you're really not gaining anything because you still have to bend your butt over the boat and down into the water. Here, you can actually, for the most part, stand, depending on the depth. But it's a safety, so you're not going butt over tea kettle into the water. Now, we've seen some young kids. We actually seen it last year on that tournament. They jump out of the boat because they're in 3 feet of water. They still couldn't get the arrow out. Standing there, like you say, wet hands, small arrow shaft, trying to pull it. It's not going to happen. But here, it is simply amazing. We picked one up last year, and it's exactly what you do. I didn't even think about the time deal for tournament, but, it's huge on that.
Yeah, and not even just for tournaments. I mean, just if you're out just for leisure, it just makes it more fun and enjoyable. If you're going to try to grab an arrow by hand and you're in the boat, you got to maneuver the boat around just right so that you can get right next to the boat and reach down in. Where this thing, you have a lot more reach where you just kind of pull on the string and get it clipped on, so you don't have to be right next to the arrow. So even if you're just out for fun and just bringing some buddies out, it's just makes it a lot more enjoyable. It takes a lot less time to turn around and go back to get your arrow.
And also when we talk about conservation and being ethical, you're not leaving anything behind.
Exactly.
Yep.
Rather your string break and you just move on and it gets wrapped in someone's prop, or if they're ice fishing and they hook down, we're keeping things cool. That's a big thing as we kind of transition into this. We're going to utilize the arrow saver in different situations, but for a while, bow fishing had a little bit of a bad name. There's always some bad eggs in every sport. Guys that were dumping fish on the shore or shooting fish and leaving them, but in a roundabout way, the big circle is the rough fish that we're targeting, especially in the state of Minnesota. Regulations are in place for that certain situation, but we're actually doing the lake a favor. Common carp are a huge invasive species. They breed well, they survive well, but they also kill a ton of freshwater fish, your walleye eggs, your bass beds, your sunnies. That's what they eat, for the bottom feeder setups. But also when you talk about drum, suckers and buffalo are in a different category on that. It's a benefit to every lake association. It's a benefit to the MNDNR to see that. And I think we finally got over the bad name for the most part, in my eyes, seeing around. There's always some rednecks out there that do crap. But, for a long time, it was getting hollered on the dock, or especially, so back in the day, there was actually a season.
Oh, yeah. It used to be. Yep. Yeah, you had to wait till May 1st before. And so now you can go pretty much as soon as the ice is off, you can go from a boat. Right. Now they still have the rule in place for streams and, things like that. So you can't go from shore until that May 1st time. But that's where it's nice with the boats and the lakes. The minute the ice is off, you can go out and start sticking them.
And we've all been in the boat Memorial Day weekend, July 4th weekend. There are rules that we have to abide by.
Yep.
Certain situations, we talk about that 50 yards, 150 feet rule.
That's
so
exactly
occupied
it.
Structure. So when you're standing on your dock with your buddy with 4 bush lights in your hand and you've already had 40 on the shoreline and you're saying, come on over here. Like, we can't.
Yep.
We can put everything away and come visit you, but we're not going to do that for the simple fact of it. What I love about the outdoor, especially the fishing community, you get to so we're night fishermen. We get to the lake, usually in that 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock hour. It's not dark yet, but we're getting everything. Who's coming off the lake? Every bass league, every walleye league fisherman. And they have no problem giving up some of the spots.
Nope.
Not a problem in the world. I love it. What do you guys, so you like Wayne, you said you take some guys out for recreation, some clients, guiding or not guiding, friends, this and that. Wayne, you guys both have a boat?
Yeah.
They're 2 separate boats.
Yep,
so
we do.
You're not only fishing together tournament style, but you family, friends.
Yep.
What's the big transition for you guys from recreational to tournaments. And then we're going to kind of go down the tournament style. Like this, you can actually make some good money, and we do it for fun. But like, where's your transition? When did you start fishing tournaments, and what have you seen since?
Boy, when we started fishing tournaments, I guess was, I know I guess when we first started off, we did the tournaments more for fun. The first couple that I did, I know I just did with some people that maybe didn't shoot quite as well or whatever, but we were just out to have a good time and not really expecting to win or anything like that. But the more you do it, you take it a little more seriously. And so to me, there is a big difference. When you're just out for recreation and with fun, it's like the last couple of years I've been bringing out a bunch of my nieces. Every year they get together as a family, and they're from the big city and stuff like that, and it's kind of fun to bring them out, and it's like you've never heard so much screaming in a cart boat in all your life when one of them actually gets a fish.
You get some grown men to scream when a 40-pounder gets, you know what I mean?
But anyway, it's just a lot of fun, to get somebody new introduced to it. And so nights like that, it's like I'm going out, I'm not even shooting until if they miss or something and the fish is taken off, then maybe I'll shoot. But you're always letting them shoot first. And in a tournament, it's just a whole different ballgame. Then it's more serious. You're concerned about time and everything else. There's no wasting time when you're going to pull up and go to another spot or whatever. We kind of each have our job as far as getting the trolling motor up, getting the motor started, getting the stuff in stowed away, and away you go. And so it's a fun part that way, where it's just a lot more serious, and yet it's just more intense. It's just it's a different ballgame.
It's kind of fun. So, like you said, when we first started doing this, it was just kind of fun. We brought others along, whatever. And then it was just him and I that were going to go out, and we weren't real serious on shore. It was like, oh yeah, we're shooting a tournament, we're having fun. As soon as the motor started up, it was game on. Mm-hmm. It was entirely different. And now as time goes by, when you go shoot a tournament, like Wayne said, it's real. It's go time. You head to your lake, you don't screw around, and you head out across the water right to that first spot. And I think one thing that has happened a lot, Wayne's good about keeping us upbeat as the night goes on. It's kind of fun. We are probably two of the older guys in all the tournaments. There's a lot of young guys out there, and but we're a couple of the older guys, but we never quit.
Yeah,
it can be pouring rain, and we're dumb enough. We're still standing on the platform, and you watch and you see the lightning coming, and you're like, oh, we got to get off the lake for a little bit.
Yeah.
As soon as it's gone, you're back on the water, and if you break down, it doesn't mean the tournament's over. It means you got to go home and figure out what you got to do and get back on the water.
And a big reason that I wanted to get you guys on this podcast, not only for Arrow Saver, because we're going to push that very, very heavily this year and help out a lot of bow fishermen, just help out a lot of boats, save a lot of time in that. But one thing that I know, or what I wanted to have you guys, is you're not just tournament fishermen. You're also champions. Like you're very successful. You guys have a system, and I can say this firsthand because we watched it last year. Now, we weren't ever close to you, or if we were, we didn't know it. But I live down here by the cities. I graduated from Parker's Prairie, so my family's up from Miltona. We fished a lot of the same bodies of water. And there's a little tournament up there that it actually started, I believe, as a bounty shoot back in the day, where we actually got paid per fish. But now it's a full-fledged tournament. It was eye-opening to me because it was the first real tournament that I fished, with my family and that. You guys had two guys. You're cool, calm, collected. Everybody else had 3 or 4 guys in their boat, and it was every long-haired, mullet-wearing kid to, the guys that obviously have a financial safety net, and there's some big boats, and then there's some guys that came from a long ways away that, fishing worlds, and they're talking and that. And I noticed right away, I recognized you guys, and it was cool, it was calm, collected, you were visiting, having a good time. And it just so happened, like, we didn't know each other. Monty and I didn't, and I haven't met Wayne until today. We talked at the tournament, but it just so happened that we accidentally fished the same lake, right? You're from the area, you know what's going on for the most part. I'm here to tell you on this podcast that we got our butts, everybody in that tournament got our butts whipped by two guys. You may say older, but I say more knowledgeable, more seasoned. So we get to weigh in, which is we fished all night long. From sundown and then the sun up, we met and we did the weigh-in. And then, of course, there's a board there, you know, dry erase board, who has the biggest fish, and then who has the most fish, and then blah, 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 blah. I think there's 4 or 5 categories, and you guys walked away with 4 of the 5. It was eye-opening to sit there, and it was a Team Arrow Saver, whatever your team was on that, but it was Team Arrow Saver, Team Arrow Saver, and then we got to the big 5, and they placed down to 3rd, you know, and then we got in there for one of it. I'm like, gosh, dang it, these guys this is what you need to do. But where I'm going with this is that if there was a brand called Expert, you're at that expert level. Do you guys take tournament? Do you go out of state? I know you do a lot of things other than bow fishing, but, you know, kind of take us on your tournament trail, like where you've been, some of your cool stories on it, like some of your more memorable moments.
A few years back, we went out and shot AMS's Big 30, and we got our butts handed to us out there by a couple of guys that's what they do. And but it was fun getting out of town, going over. It's tough when you go out of state. Mm-hmm. You go over and you shoot against all the locals who know all the area lakes, that know all the little secrets, and they have pre-shot a lot of this stuff. That was memorable to me. We didn't do so well. There was 3 of us that went over there and shot that, and it was a good time. It was fun to see how something like that worked in a Big 30.
Yep.
You know, rather than a Big 5 or a Big 6 to shoot a Big 30.
Right.
So, and then, you know, then there's always the people that they have a numbers portion or something. We've never played the numbers game. It's just not us. We like shooting big fish, but then we also went down and we shot the Worlds tournament, and it was kind of interesting. I had no idea what the Worlds was all about. You show up and you're expecting the team from Japan and China and whatever, and no, there was somebody from Missouri.
Yeah, right.
So, but it was fun going down and shooting the river and whatever, and so it was fun to see different fish and whatever.
The aspect of tournaments is the tournament date is set, right? So we're all sitting here. Let's say, you know, we decided we're going to go out on Thursday night together. If it's pouring rain and nasty and, you know, 3-foot waves, we're probably not going to go out. But on a tournament, it's that day. As long as the safety is in effect, like there's going to be some times when it's raining. It's going to be wind. A chop on a lake is not the great. Even if you have a bunch of lights and a really nice boat, elevated or not elevated, doesn't matter. The degree of difficulty is very present at that time. But you also have competition on that situation. Some of the etiquette in bow fishing, if there's etiquette, goes away. I mean, we've seen it before. And also, like the numbers deal, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's the biggest skewed portion of any tournament, because you have every Tom, Dick, and Harry that'll meet at Jim and Judy's, you know, on the back there and fill their barrel with their buddy's barrel, or because they know they don't have a shot, and then all of a sudden they have 2 barrels full, and you go, really? I kind of see what your equipment is. Like, you know, I think the numbers deal's a little skewed on that, but that's just a personal opinion. If you go out and you are a numbers guy, awesome. You're doing a favor for the lake.
Yep.
I'd rather see a guy pull a 35-pounder out of the barrel rather than 35 bullheads, you know, in my mind. But we're, as far as your equipment, you know, obviously, when you started back then, I can about guess what you had for equipment. But now that's just as important as anything, because it has to have a system. You got to know your stuff. What are you guys using for as far as products, and what have you seen over the years that works better?
Yeah, I guess going back to that, when I first started, the very first time when I got hooked, I didn't have the money to go out and buy a separate cart boat. So I had my Deep V walleye fishing boat, and I made a plywood platform on the front of it and it was frustrating because so often in carp, they're up really shallow, and you could see carp up in there, and this is daytime stuff, but you couldn't get to them. And so it was really a frustrating deal. So it didn't take long, and I ended up getting a different, what seems to work best is like a flat bottom duck boat kind of a deal. But generally bigger is actually better a lot of times in that case. Originally I was thinking about going with just a smaller, like a 1648 or something. And the thing is, you can get the bigger. I have an 1872, which 18 feet wide, or 18 feet long, excuse me, and 72 inches wide in back. But that'll actually float in as shallow water as some of the smaller boats do. But that works out really well when you have a bigger boat. You know, people don't realize when you start getting into carp and you get a couple of 55-gallon drums full of fish in there, that's a lot of extra weight. You know, that's 900 to 1,000 pounds extra in your boat. So if you are shooting in a really small boat, it can actually get to be where you have to watch it, because especially if you get in big waves or anything like that, pretty quick you're taking on water and you're in trouble. So anyway, so that's what I have. Is I've got a boat, and I've got the raised platform up front with the lights sit underneath. A big reason I had that was just during the daytime, it was an advantage to be raised up. And so that's just the way I had set my boat up originally.
And you guys are running, obviously, at night. You got lights, a bunch of lights on there. There's been a big swing from having just a generator in the back to running a power cord up just to run your lights, you know, and then you still had your boat batteries for your trolling motor. Trolling motor is a big deal. Some guys run a kicker on that. I don't even know the correct terminology, but they're driving it from the front, but the kicker on the back. Have you, you said elevated, so you raised your platform, or both of you, do you have, like, is your boat low, or do you both have raised platforms?
We both have raised platforms on our boat.
And I assume for day fishing, I don't do a lot of day fishing, but sometimes, especially during the spawn, that can be a phenomenal time to be out on the water.
Oh, it can be, yeah. If you hit it right when they're spawning, it's awesome. I mean, the water's just boiling, and it's you know, there's times you end up with a couple fish on one arrow.
Right.
Know? So yeah, if you hit it right when they're spawning, it's great.
And the raised platform allows you just to see your angle.
It just gives you the angle down into the water better. So it's, if the lower you are to the water, the more, I don't know the technical term for it, but you get more glare. You just can't see down into the water as better. So when you're raised up, it just gives you a much better.
And does that help at night when you guys are running your lights? Is it a big deal?
I honestly, if anything, I would say an elevated platform at night probably hurts you.
Okay.
I think at night, I think you're actually probably better off closer to the water. But I've just never changed my platform, even though it's mainly what I do is at nighttime. But I've just, it's there, it's set up, and it works. And so we.
And the biggest thing, now I've seen your boat personally. I think I've seen your boat. There's a lot of cool gadgets and gadgets, but on the same sense, it's pretty simple. Like, you want an open area, especially, okay, with two guys, you still got to be able to move, because when you shoot a fish, you got to get the fish in, and working together, you know, usually you have a guy that'll help you, or if you need to do a follow-up shot, if it's a big mamba, you know, you're going to do that. An open area. Is there a center console, or is it a tiller? I can't remember.
So I've got a center console in mine, and it's a little unique. My center console is actually quite large. I've got a 6,500 watt Honda generator in there, and I needed to go with the big one. You mentioned earlier about running the trollers with batteries and whatnot. Coming from electrical background, I was talking to guys that were frying their trolling motors all the time, and some of the feelings were that as their batteries were getting weak, they were cooking their motors, their trollers, because of it. So came up with the idea of a 36-volt DC power supply, which did a lot of investigating and ended up with 36-volt DC power supply, but it takes 240 volts to run it. So that's why I had to go to such a big generator.
Right.
But it's awesome as long as you've got gas, you've got a trolling motor. And I know when I talked to the Minn Kota rep, he's like, yeah, he said, you've got a constant. Everything should be good. Should make quite a difference on your troller. So.
And like, what kind of trolling motor? Are you running a 101, or is that the biggest? I don't even know.
There's actually, what, a 112?
112, I think, is the biggest.
Because we do get into some gunk.
Yeah.
Weeds laid over, or you got to get where the carp are for some reason on that. The biggest thing, Wayne, to bring back like your nieces coming out, anytime that we bring out a new shooter, rather be a young lady or a young guy or an older guy, that the same story you talked about, I've shot forever. I can hit a pop bottle of 50 yards with my archery equipment. Well, that's great. But if you don't know how to aim, if you don't know what water deflection is, it is different when you're shooting into water. Light bends.
Yep.
So, the slogan, if you think you're aiming low, aim lower.
Yep.
But it only takes 15, 20 shots to kind of figure things out. But then again, it changes with water depth. And obviously day fishing is probably a little bit different than night fishing, I would assume.
A little bit, not a lot though. As far as where you aim at on a fish, it's like you say, you got to aim low, and it is kind of the rule of thumb I've always heard is the farther out the fish is, or the deeper the water is, the farther you have to aim beneath. And I know I do a little bit of guiding and stuff once in a while, as well as just bringing people out for fun. And something I've really learned over the years is if you just take the time. I used to just bring people out and just tell them, yep, you got to aim lower, and you watch where they're hitting. And I've found it actually helps a ton. What I've gotten to do now is I bring like a 1 liter pop bottle along, put some sand in it, and then I sink it.
Yep.
And in 3 feet of water or something like that, and then we'll sit there and I'll have them shoot, and then you can actually see right where their arrow hits. And it's good to have kind of a smaller target like that so that they can shoot and they're going, wow, their first shot, usually they'll hit about 1.5 feet or 2 feet over it, and they'll go, wow, you got to aim that much lower. So they'll aim lower yet. And so that really helps them to get an idea of just how far beneath you have to aim. And so, like you said, it might take 20, 30 shots. Well, sometimes missing 20 or 30 fish can be frustrated.
Over.
Yeah, and so you can shoot a lot of times right away and get an idea on, then they finally are getting really close. We're like, yep, that'll work. So
that's a great idea. I didn't think about that. So when we say aiming, and you guys add to this, like I'm not running a laser on my bow fishing bow. I don't even have sights. I don't have a peep. It's an instinctive kind of way. Is that the same equipment you guys are running? You kind of aiming in the area. You know where to hold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I shoot instinctive that way, I guess. The one thing I will say with lasers, and you guys sell lasers here too, I'm assuming, they can be good for somebody if you don't shoot real often or haven't shot them that much. When you get them dialed in, they actually do work pretty well, on a fish that's sitting still.
Right.
The problem is a lot of times that fish isn't sitting still, that they're moving. And so it does still, instinctive is still just kind of the way to go. But like I said, I have shot with a couple guys that have that laser, and if there's a fish just laying there and if it's dialed in right, they actually do work pretty well.
Some of the equipment you guys what kind of bows are you using for the I assume you have more than one, or kind of a backup, especially in a situation where you're bringing out people. But there's kind of two styles. There's the compound that has a draw length, or even an older hunting compound bow that you can shoot. And kind of something that hasn't really been new to the outdoor industry is kind of a lever action. We use the word Oneida. That's a company that makes some really good products. It looks like a recurve with a compound. It's kind of a hybrid setup. Is that what you guys are using?
We're both shooting that style of bow. They're kind of nice from the standpoint of with us shooting, if you get into shallow water or root system that looks kind of ugly or whatever, you don't go to full draw. That's the nice thing about it. Where a regular compound, you'd have to go to a full draw. And you bury it in the bottom of the lake.
And you need arrow saver to get it out.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or if there's big rocks, that's another time when it's nice to do more of a plink shot where you don't shatter an arrow trying to shoot at a fish full draw.
Considered snap shooting. There's some situations where you'll barrel off into a bay, or you're coming around a corner and something darts off. It's a pretty big fish. You have to be able to swing shoot now. It's not a wait and go back and they stop, because they don't stop usually. The aspect of that, what do you guys know what poundage you're shooting?
I'm guessing I'm about 35.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm probably more in the 40 range is what I have mine at. But
and the big thing is, like, you don't need 70 pounds with an 85% let off. You can if you want, but you don't need that. I don't see a benefit in that. If nothing, it's a hindrance a little bit. That's where arrow saver is going to come into that.
I was going to say, if you're shooting 70 pounds, then you definitely need an arrow saver, because it's going to be buried deep into those cattails.
Arrows is a big thing, just like archery hunting. You have heavyweight. What we're usually shooting, there's a couple different styles. There's carbon, which is going to be lighter weight, and then there's fiberglass, which most of us use. There's also some aluminum out there, which bend. What are you using on your tournaments? Also on the tips, there's different. We got grapples, we got carp, prong style. Take us down that road of the arrow selection.
So both of us shoot grapples. Sometimes shoot grapples in tournaments for sure. Most of the time we shoot grapples all the time now. It used to be that we wouldn't shoot grapples for the sheer fact that we'd get our arrows stuck in the bottom of the lake and just couldn't get them out, and you struggled so much that we used the wire style head on it and whatnot. And but now we've switched over to pretty much always using grapples. I always say that, you get them stuck in the bottom of the lake. It's hard to pull them out. It's also hard to pull them out of a fish. You don't want to be losing fish when you're out hunting. So that's why we're using grapples.
Is it a 3 grapple or a 2 grapple? I know Interlock is a big name. Muzzy makes some good products as well. AMS makes a lot of great products. Have you found like a smaller 3 grapple or a bigger? What's your choice?
I guess we use the bigger 3 grapple is what I shoot an Interlock grapple and three blade, and so yeah, that's what we've just found works really well as far as holding there again for bigger fish, especially because you start talking a 30+ pound carp, there's a lot of pull there.
They can run.
They can fight.
You on the aspect of that, so for listeners that don't have an idea, when you shoot a fish, all right, you're successful, you get it in, now you got to get the arrow out of it. On most, I'd say 99% of these tips that are on these arrows, we loosen the sharper end of it. It's just a point. Some of them are have a little twist to them or what have you. But you loosen that, and what it does is it's a switch mechanism in there. You can fold the blades back forward, so you can easily pull the arrow out of the fish. The unfortunate situation is when you're buried in the weeds, you can't reach down and loosen the tip, and that's where the arrow saver comes in. And I know we're pumping that really, really hard, but it's a product that you just need to have it in the boat, for any situations. I don't use a carbon arrow. We sell some that have a lighted knock. At night fishing, you can usually see. It is cool, like the cool factor of it. Yeah, there's my knock as my fish is going away, but I think we all shoot what we call a bottle reel. Kind of a new phenomenon is like a bail, or I call it a Zebco look.
Yep.
And then there's Megamouth has come out with like a very, very high end reel situation where you're actually mounting off of like the stabilizer port on your bow. And then if I'm right, and this is me not knowing, but you have to release the bail button and then shoot, and then you can actually set the drag. Am I right?
I believe you're right. I just bought one,
okay.
And I'm going to give it a try. I've used the bottle forever, and it's worked well. So it's, how do you change something that's working well?
Right. But no, I completely agree with you.
I've heard just so much about that Megamouth that I had to try one. So I've got one, and we're going to put it on a bow for this spring. So
is there any other equipment that we're kind of missing that is a must?
One thing I would say is a GPS. And whether that's on your phone or whatever, but when you get out on especially on bigger lakes at night, it's amazing how turned around you can get. And so it's a good idea, especially when it comes to tournaments, to be able to have kind of your spots marked and be able to see where they're at. And I remember one tournament in particular that we shot, and it was like a light rain, but it was just fog, and there was so much fog on lake. I mean, you just could not see, and it was a big lake, and we had to go a long ways to get to our spot. And without GPS, I don't know how you'd have got there, you know. And it's you still got to watch it. You know, it still is a safety thing, but still, just to be able to know where you're at and where you need to get to, it's a huge plus. You know, even for marking your spots and things like that, to be able to find it at tournament time, it's nice to be able to head across the lake and know that you're going right towards the spot where you need to.
You know, I never even thought about that. Like, you know, hunting situation, especially out west where we're going to some uncharted land that we've never been to, and you can kind of, you go your topo maps and figure out where you're going. It's on your phone or on your Garmin or whatever you may have. But in a lake situation, especially a tournament that you're going to, you're not from that area. For an example, and you guys will exactly know where I'm talking, but you actually access on one lake, you're going to go under the road, go across the bigger portion of the lake, you're going to go under the road again, and then that third stage of lake, there's actually a sandbar that comes to a point, and there's about 10 feet that you can get through, even with a flat bottom, 18-foot boat. If you didn't know that sandbar's there and you're going 30 miles an hour, you can look at the buoys. But this last year, when our water was so incredibly low, there's some spots you physically can't get to, but we can pull up your phone. And like you say, I launched here. This is where I need to get back to when it comes to weigh-in, because you can't miss weigh-in. If you do, you're out on that. Guys, I think, we've covered almost everything on that. Is there any tips or tricks? We usually have like a little pro shop tip of the week that we run, from day fishing, night fishing, just having fun, tournament fishing, whatever. One thing that you see that happens, a lot of mistakes are made, or you're talking to kind of new bow fishermen out there that we can kind of help cover or take away.
Well, I kind of gave my one tip already, I think, with practice. Go out and sink a pop bottle. You want to make sure that you eventually hit it and get it out of there. You don't want to be leaving it behind. But that would be the biggest tip for me, especially for somebody starting out, is do that. Go out and sink a pop bottle, and then stand there and shoot at it. And then once you shoot, when you initially shoot, the water is kind of, you get that wave on the top and you can't see what happened, but eventually then you can see right where your arrow is and where you hit, and so then you can kind of make your adjustments, and that'll help you a lot.
I've got a way bigger tip.
Throw them under the bus. I love it.
I think it was a couple of years ago. We got to the lake, pretty excited. It's go time. Back the boat in. Remember to put your plug in. I've got two plugs in the back of my boat that are both about 2 inch in diameter. He backs the boat in. I'm in there, and I step off to the side, and all of a sudden, there's water.
Uh-oh.
Mayhem.
Bilge pump. Find the bilge pump. I love it. I would say, obviously, I'm not as advanced as you guys, but one thing that I see happen every year, and it's going to happen, but you can really get on Google, and you're not going to know what a carp looks like from the top if you've never seen one, but you got to know what species you're chasing. There's rough fish, which we're allowed to shoot. You're not allowed to shoot freshwater fish. If you're unsure of what it is, don't shoot. Doesn't matter if it's a big carp and it happened to be like a buffalo that's black backed, and you think it could easily be a bass that you don't, just know your target. And I think that's just ethics and the way you're grown up and kind of knowing it. But fish do look a little bit different. Know your species. Know your target animal on that setup. Guys, this has been a blast. If they have any questions on the product, they can get a hold of us on archerycountry.com and ask the experts. But also, you guys are an open book. They can get a hold of you. Is there a website
Arrowsaver.com.
Arrowsaver.com. You can get on there. They can order from you guys. All of our shops, Brainerd Waite Park and right here in Rogers, we have stock, and we can easily get stock because it's a Minnesota company, and it's just a couple hours to get what we need from that. It's a product that I want you guys to check out. It's something that you need in your boat, or if you don't have a boat and you're just shoreline fishing, it's something that you can have and carry with you, set on the shore, and when you need it, you have it. It's going to save you. Any of our arrows are going to run anywhere from $19.99 on the low end all the way up to $40, depending if you're going to put different tips and that. And then time is a big thing. You want to enjoy your setup out there. Guys, it has been a blast. I appreciate you, Wayne. I appreciate you, Monty, coming down. And, of course, check it out. For those of you listening, if you haven't already subscribed to it, also we're going to have a little YouTube video on the Arrow Saver so you can see it firsthand. Stop in the shop, and we will take care of you. On behalf of everybody at Archery Country Podcast, we'll see you on down the road.
Thank you for listening to Archery Country Podcast.